My father-in-law called me a charity case the first time he met me. Not to my face, to my wife. In the kitchen, while I away from the living room pretending to look at a framed photo of their family vacation, his voice carried. He knew it would. That was 15 years ago. He called again last March. Different tone. Same man. My name is Owen Calloway. I'm 43 years old. I grew up in Clarkfield, Minnesota, a town of about 1,100 people set down in the middle of farmland, so flat you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. My father, Dale Calloway, drove a grain truck for 30 years. Same route, same hours. The same thermos of black coffee wedged between the seat and the door. My mother, Ruth, taught second grade at Clarkfield Elementary for 26 years. She retired the year before she died of a stroke, 61 years old. She had 2 weeks of plans that she never got to. I was the first in my family to go to college, University of Minnesota on a Pell Grant, and a work-study job mopping floors in the science building 3 mornings a week. I studied accounting, not because I loved it, but because I understood it, and because numbers, unlike most things in my life up to that point, did what they were supposed to do. I met Priya Anand in the spring of my second year. She was in the same accounting elective, and she had a habit of arriving exactly 1 minute before class started, setting down a worn canvas tote bag with a broken zipper, and solving the first problem on the board before the professor had finished writing it. Economics major, first-generation Indian American, full scholarship from a family in Naperville, Illinois, that had worked their way from a one-bedroom apartment to a dental practice in 20 years. Her father, Dr. Rajan Anand, was a periodontist. Her mother, Meena, managed the practice and 3 investment properties and sat on 2 school board committees and still found time to make her own yogurt from scratch. They had expectations. They had a plan. I was not part of it. Our first real conversation was in the library. She was working through a cost-benefit model, and the numbers weren't closing. And I looked over her shoulder for 30 seconds and saw the error without meaning to and told her. She looked at me like I'd said something either very impressive or very presumptuous. Then she moved her bag off the chair next to her without saying a word. I sat down. We worked for 3 hours. She bought me coffee from the vending machine. The bad kind that comes out with too much sugar. She paid. I thanked her. She said it was the least she could do. That part also turned out to be entirely true. We dated through the end of undergrad. I met her parents once during those 2 years. The visit lasted an afternoon. Rajan shook my hand, asked where I was from, and when I said Clarkfield, he said, "I don't know that one," turned back to the news. Meena was polite the way people are polite when they've already decided something. She served chai and fruit and asked me 3 questions, all of them about career plans. When I described the entry-level audit position I'd lined up at a regional firm in Minneapolis, she nodded in the way that means, the opposite of impressed. Priya's older brother, Neil Anand, 36 at the time, an orthopedic surgery resident at Northwestern, was not there that afternoon. He made himself present in other ways. A text Priya didn't hide fast enough. "He's white and broke, Priya. Think about what you're doing." She told me it didn't matter what he thought. I believed her because I needed to. I proposed to Priya on a Tuesday evening in November. No restaurant, no ring box pulled from a jacket pocket. We were at the kitchen table in the apartment we'd been renting for 8 months, doing separate work, and I put down my pen and looked at her and said, "I want to spend the rest of my life with this. With you doing that," and I pointed at whatever spreadsheet she was building. "I want to marry you." She looked up. She said yes the way she said most things, completely, without decoration, without making me wait. She meant it all the way down. I called Rajan that night. He picked up on the 3rd ring. I told him I'd asked Priya to marry me and she'd said yes. The line went quiet for what I counted as 11 seconds. Then he said, "She told you she would think about it?" I said no. I said she said yes. Another pause. Then slowly, "You should have asked me first, not congratulations, not welcome to the family." A procedural correction. I apologized for the protocol I hadn't known to follow. He said he'd need to speak with Meena. He hung up without saying goodbye. The letter came 2 weeks later. Rajan's handwriting, blue ink on personal stationery, the kind with his name embossed at the top. 4 paragraphs. The last one said this: "Priya was raised for a life you are not equipped to give her. We did not build what we built so that she could start over from nothing. If you go through with this, you will be taking her from her family and offering her nothing in return. We will not come. We will not bless this. And if she chooses you, she will have made her choice, and she will have to live with what that costs her." I read it 4 times. I folded it carefully along its original creases. I put it in a manila folder. Something in me, the part that grew up watching my father, keep his pay stubs in a shoebox under the bed in case anyone ever needed to know, said, "Hold this," so I held it. We got married on a Saturday in late May at the Hennepin County Courthouse in Minneapolis. 12 people. All Priya's friends, her college roommate Tara, 2 colleagues from her new job. My cousin Gary drove 4 hours from Mankato with his wife Linda and a bottle of champagne he'd kept in a cooler since the week before. My father couldn't come. His back had been bad for months and the drive was too much. He sent a card with a check for $40 and wrote on the inside, "I'm proud of you, son. Make it last." Priya's mother's sisters, her Masi, flew in from Mexico. She was the only one from Priya's family. She hugged Priya for a long time at the door of the courthouse, said nothing while she did it, and then pulled back and held Priya's face in her hands and said, "You look like your mother did on her wedding day." She brought us a hand-embroidered table runner she'd made herself, deep red and gold thread, 6 weeks of evenings. We still have it on the dining table. That night, back in our apartment, I sat on the edge of the bed while Priya was in the bathroom, and I looked at the grocery store daisies I'd bought at the Cub Foods on the way home, $7, and my hands were shaking. Not from doubt. From a grief that doesn't have a word for it in English. I had just married the best person I had ever known, and her family had decided I wasn't worth the drive. 1 week later, I mailed a card to Naperville, our wedding photo tucked inside, both of us squinting in the courthouse parking lot, Priya laughing at something I'd just said. I wrote, "We are happy. We hope you will be too someday." 11 days later, the envelope came back, stamped in red, "Return to sender." I set it on the kitchen table and looked at it for a while. Then I opened the manila folder, added the envelope on top of the letter, and wrote on the outside in black marker, "Item 1. Wedding photo. Returned June 11." That was the start of the accordion file. Rust-colored, legal-sized, expandable with a black elastic band around the middle. I bought it at a Walgreens, $4 and change. I kept it in the bottom of my file cabinet, behind the car insurance documents and the old tax returns. I didn't think of it as anything more than documentation. I didn't know yet how thick it would get. The first year was the kind of hard that doesn't announce itself. I called Rajan once, voicemail. I called Meena once, voicemail. I sent a Christmas card with our address and phone number on the back, because I thought maybe they'd lost them. It came back with the same red stamp. Priya didn't talk about it. She had a way of carrying hard things without setting them down in front of you. I watched her do it, and I tried to learn from it, and I was not as good at it as she was. Year 2, Priya left the accounting firm and started building something on her own. She called it Groundwork Analytics, a platform for mid-sized nonprofits that couldn't afford full-time financial staff but needed grant compliance tracking and reporting. She built it from our second bedroom on a monitor she bought, used off Craigslist, with a sticky corner that never stayed flat. I handled the business filings, vendor contracts, the early invoicing. She built what it actually did. We launched with 4 clients and a server that went down twice in the first month. She fixed it both times before I finished panicking. Our daughter Harper was born in year 3. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, Monday morning, first week of February. Kavitha flew in from Phoenix the next day. She arrived at the hospital with a cooler bag of homemade food and a soft knit blanket in pale yellow that she'd finished the night before on her living room floor. She sat in the chair beside Priya's bed and held Harper for 2 hours while Priya slept. She sang to her in a low voice, something in Gujarati I didn't know the words to, and watching her do it, I understood for the first time what it was going to mean to Harper to have her in her life. I sent a birth announcement to Naperville. Photo of Harper, 2 days old. Eyes still adjusting to the light. It came back. Red stamp. Item 9. Rajan and Meena had a granddaughter they had never seen, and they sent her photo back in an envelope. Neil texted a college friend of Priya's who had stayed in touch with both of them. She forwarded it to Priya, who told me about it later that night. In the quiet way she told me things she couldn't hold anymore. She made her choice. The kid is half white, their loss. I asked Priya how she was. She said she was fine. I knew she wasn't, and I knew she knew I knew, and she needed to say fine anyway, so I let her. Later I printed the screenshot, labeled it, filed it. Item 11. By year 4, Groundwork had 9 full-time employees and a wait list. We were partners in the way that only people who've built something together from nothing really understand, not just shared credit but shared risk, shared 6 a.m. problem solving, shared shorthand that cut hours off conversations. Our names on the same documents, our shoulders equally tired at the end of the same long days. The accordion file had 22 items by then. I'd stopped thinking about it much. It lived where it lived, and I knew what was in it without needing to open it. Year 6 brought the first sign of something shifting. A mutual friend from Priya's college days mentioned offhand that Meena had asked about groundwork at a Diwali gap. Not about Priya. About the company. What did it do? Who were the clients? Had it raised outside money? The friend thought it was small talk. I filed the mention mentally and said nothing. That same year, I mailed my last birthday card to Naperville. Harper had turned 3 in February. Inside the card, I put a photo of her at her birthday party. Yellow frosting on her nose, both arms raised, laughing at something only 3-year-olds laugh at. On the back I wrote, "Her name is Harper. She is funny and loud and stubborn in the best way. She asks about family sometimes. We tell her some people live far away." The card came back in 8 days, but the envelope had been opened. I could see it when I held it up to the kitchen light. The glue was readhered with a strip of clear tape, slightly crooked. Someone had pulled the flap apart, taken out the card, looked at her and then put it back and sealed it again. Rajan, I was almost certain. He'd seen his granddaughter laughing with frosting on her face. He'd held the photo long enough to decide to hold it. Then someone made him put it back. I held the envelope for a long time. Then I put it in the accordion file. Item 17, opened and resealed, photo viewed, returned. The messages came in year 8. Priya's cousin Deepa, Kavitha's daughter, was in a family group chat she'd forgotten to leave. When Priya's name came up, she took screenshots and sent them to Kavitha, who sent them to Priya. 12 pages. Neil. Groundwork filed for a Series A 8 million. Pre-money around 45. If they grow the way I think they grow, we're looking at a real exit in 3 to 5 years. Rajan, what is our position here? Neil, we don't have one, but we could. There are ways to re-engage that don't look like what they are. Meena. Priya is still her father's daughter. She would respond if we approached it correctly. Neil. Dad, make the first move. She'll think it's about family. Then we have leverage. Rajan. This doesn't feel like the right thing. Rajan did not type again. I sat in the parking lot of Harper's swimming lesson and read all 12 pages twice. My hands were not shaking this time. My hands were completely still. That was new. That was the particular stillness that comes when you have been expecting something for a long time, and it finally arrives exactly the way you expected it. I drove home, printed all 12 pages, filed them. Item 24, 25, 26. Approach strategy confirmed, red marker, dated. Groundwork was acquired the following spring by a healthcare data firm out of Boston, ClearPath Systems. Priya negotiated the terms herself over 4 months. Total deal, $58 million. We held 31%. The number didn't feel real the morning it finalized. I sat at the kitchen table with a coffee that went cold while I looked at the wire confirmation on my laptop and thought about the used Craigslist monitor in the second bedroom and the $4 accordion file in the bottom of my filing cabinet. Rajan's email arrived 9 days later. I know it was 9 because I counted. 68 words. Not one of them was sorry. Not one mentioned Harper, or the returned envelopes, or the letter that said you are offering her nothing. He wrote about the distance that had grown between our families as though it were weather, something that happened to all of them equally, something no one had caused. He wrote that he hoped the recent developments might open a door for reconnection. He used the word reconnection twice. I screenshotted the email, printed it. Item 27. First contact from Rajan Anand in 8 years. 68 words. 0 acknowledgement, 0 apology. Red marker. Dated. A week later, Kavitha called Priya. She said Meena had told her they were planning to come to Minneapolis. She said she thought Priya should know. She said she was sorry she was the one delivering the message. What are you going to do? Let them come, Priya said. I heard her say it from the hallway. She looked at me when she said it. Her face was calm in the way that means the opposite of indifference. They arrived on a Thursday. Mid-morning, Rajan and Meena, together, they took a car from the airport. I watched from the kitchen window as it pulled up. Rajan stepped out first, moving carefully the way men move when their knees are reminding them of their age. He was grayer than the last photo I'd seen of him. Meena wore a navy blazer and carried a small handbag and looked at our house with an expression I recognized from real estate agents. Measured, calculating, arriving at a number. Priya opened the door. They stood on the porch for a moment. Rajan said her name. Priya said his. Then she stepped aside and said, "Come in." I was at the kitchen table. Priya stood beside me when they sat down. That was a choice she made without discussing it with me beforehand, and I noticed it and felt it and said nothing. Rajan looked at the photos on the refrigerator. Harper at 5, missing her front tooth. Harper and Kavitha at the Phoenix Zoo, both of them pointing at something outside the frame. Kavitha had given us that one in a frame. Mina set a folder on the table, printed pages, tabbed with colored stickers. She opened it and began to speak in the measured tone of a woman who had rehearsed this on the flight over. Rajan's retirement accounts had underperformed. The Naperville house needed a new roof and had an HVAC system that was 15 years past its expected lifespan. Neil had 2 children in private school and had overextended on a new house in Wilmette. The practice had new competition from a corporate dental group and revenue was down 18%. They had identified several areas where assistance would allow the family to stabilize. The total, when she reached the end of the tab pages, was one line of it acknowledged that Priya existed as a person separate from her earning capacity. Not one question about Harper. Not one sentence that began with the word sorry. Families take care of each other, Mina said. She folded her hands. We gave her everything she needed to become who she is. It's time to think about what comes next. Priya did not move. She looked at the folder for a moment. Then she looked at me. I stood up. I walked to my office. I opened the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet, behind the car insurance and the old tax returns. I took out the rust-colored accordion file with the black elastic band. It was heavier than when I'd started it. I carried it back to the kitchen and set it on the table beside Mina's folder. Side by side, her folder, tab printed, $1.1 million. No apology. My file, 8 years, 27 items. Every door tried, every door returned. Rajan looked at it. What is that? I said. You brought a file. I brought one too. I opened to the first tab. I kept my voice level. The way I read numbers in a board meeting, because I feel them, but because the numbers speak better without the noise around them. Item 1, wedding photo, mailed, made, returned. 11, red stamp, returned to sender. I placed the envelope on the table, stamp facing up. Item 2, Christmas card, December of the first year, returned, same stamp. I kept going. Mina's hands went still. Rajan stopped looking at the file and started looking at the table. Item 9, birth announcement. Harper, February 3rd, photo included. Returned, you have a granddaughter you sent back in an envelope. Mina's mouth open. That is not. 11, Neil's text message, forwarded by a mutual contact. I placed the printed screenshot on the table. The kid is half white. Their loss. Labeled. Filed. She went rigid. Items 24 through 26. A group chat. 12 pages. Neil's strategy for re-engaging with Priya once the acquisition became likely. Quote, make the first move. She'll think it's about family. Then we have leverage. Rajan made a sound I hadn't heard from him before, something between a breath and a word that didn't finish. I placed the pages on the table. You had no right to access private communication, Mina said. Her voice was controlled, just barely. Priya spoke for the first time since they sat down. Her voice was quiet. You had no right to send my daughter's photo back in an envelope. The kitchen was silent. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked twice and stopped. I reached into the accordion file for item 17. The birthday card envelope with the crooked strip of clear tape across the resealed flap. I held it up. Harper's 3rd birthday. Her photo was inside. This came back in 8 days, but someone had already opened it. I turned the envelope so Rajan could see the tape. The flap was pulled apart and resealed. Someone took out the photo, looked at her face, held it, then put it back and returned it. Rajan's jaw moved. That was you, I said. It wasn't a question. He didn't answer, which was its own answer. You wanted to keep it, I said, and you couldn't. His eyes went to the refrigerator, to the photo of Harper and Kavitha at the Phoenix Zoo. He looked at it for a long time. Something crossed his face that might have been the first honest expression I'd seen from him. It lasted about 3 seconds. Then his posture reset. Everything we did was to protect Priya's future. Priya leaned forward. You protected me from a man who would build a company with me from nothing and file every piece of paper in 8 years that proved you were wrong about him. You protected me from that. Rajan had nothing. For that, I looked at both of them. I kept my voice the same. Mina's folder, I said, and I touched it, is $1.1 million and no apology. I touched the accordion file. Mine is 27 items and 8 years of trying to reach people who didn't want to be reached until the number was big enough. I picked up Mina's folder and held it out. You are not getting the money, not because we can't afford it. Because the moment we give it to you, you will tell yourselves you were right to wait. You'll call the 8 years a misunderstanding. You'll fold it into the story you've been telling about your family, and will be part of a story we didn't agree to be in. Mina stood. Rajan did not. If you want to know Harper, I said, and I mean actually know her, not a relationship you manage because it's now financially advisable, that starts with an apology to Priya. Not to me, and not today. When you are genuinely ready to mean it. Mina picked up her folder. She did not look at Priya. She looked at me with the expression of a woman who was very used to being the one who ended conversations, and was now finding the experience on the other side of it. She walked to the front door. John stood. He paused at the table. He looked at the accordion file. He picked up the envelope with the clear tape, item 17, and held it for a moment and then set it back down carefully, the way you set something down when you're aware of what it means. To have picked it up, he followed Mina out. The door closed. Not a slam. The sound of a door closed by someone who had run out of positions to argue from. Priya and I sat in the kitchen for a while without talking. Harper was at school. It was a Tuesday, and she had art class, and she'd left that morning with a project she'd been working on for a week, a painted handprint turkey she was going to give Kavitha. The house was quiet. The refrigerator hummed. I looked at the rust-colored accordion file on the table. "You okay?" I said. "Yeah," Priya said. She looked at the place where Rajan had been sitting. "I've been okay for a long time," I believed her. This time it was true. 3 weeks passed. Priya and I didn't revisit it. There wasn't much to revisit. They had come with a strategy. We had been ready. They had left without what they came for and without saying what needed to be said. The ledger was clear. Neil texted me once. A single line. "You could have just helped the family." I read it. I did not reply. Some things are their own answer. Rajan called on a Sunday, 5 weeks after they'd left. Early morning, before Harper was awake. I was at the kitchen table with coffee when Priya came out of the bedroom holding her phone, and the look on her face told me, before she said anything. She stepped out onto the back porch to take it. I could hear her through the screen door, but not the words. She was out there for 22 minutes. When she came back inside, she set her phone down on the counter and stood there for a moment. "He's sorry," she said. He said that first. He said he's been sorry for a long time and he didn't know how to say it without it feeling like losing. She paused. He said he saw the tape on the envelope when I put it on the table and he knew that was it, that I would know. He said he thought about Harper every day for 5 years. I didn't say anything. "He doesn't want money," she said. He said that 3 times. "He wants to know her." She looked at me. "He wants to know her if we'll let him try." I was quiet. The coffee had gone cold. "What did you say?" I asked. "I said we'd talk," she said. "I said I needed time. I said time was something we were going to require." She pulled her cardigan tighter. He said okay. She came and sat beside me at the table. After a while, she put her hand on top of mine. It was Rajan who called, not Mina. That distinction mattered to me, and I think it mattered to her too. We start there. We see what it looks like on the other side of a month of phone calls with no agenda. We don't schedule visits yet. We let it be a slow thing and see what it grows into, if it grows at all. Mina did not call. She has not written. The silence that came back was hers to own. Kavitha came to visit for a long weekend in July. She brought a new project, a quilt she was making for Harper's bedroom, squares of different fabrics from different places. She spread the finished patches on the kitchen floor and let Harper rearrange them until Harper was satisfied with the order. Then she sat at the kitchen table with her coffee and watched Harper explain her system to me with the seriousness of a CEO presenting a quarterly plan. "She's exactly like her mother," Kavitha said. "I know," I said. "She's going to run something someday." "I know that too." The accordion file is in the bottom drawer of my filing. 27 items. I have not added a 28th. I hope I don't have to. Harper asked me last week why we don't visit Grandpa and Grandma Anand. She was eating cereal at the kitchen table and asked it the way 7-year-olds ask things directly, without warning, right between a bite and a sip. I thought about it for a moment. I wanted to get it right. "We're working on that," I said. "Some things take time to fix. This is one of them." She thought about that. "Did they do something wrong?" "Yeah," I said. "They did. Are they sorry?" "Your grandpa is starting to be." She nodded in the way she nods when she's decided to accept an answer and move on. She went back to her cereal. Outside the window, the maple in the backyard was just starting to turn, the first edges of orange branches, the rest still green and holding on. Kavitha was coming back in 2 weeks. She was bringing the finished quilt and a new bag of ground cumin because she'd decided Harper needed to learn to make dal and was taking it seriously. That is what showing up looks like. It looks like a woman who drives an hour to the fabric store to pick out squares of cloth. It looks like someone who books a flight without being asked and asks nothing in return. It has nothing to do with net worth or leverage or a tabbed folder of calculations. It has nothing to do with timing your arrival until the number is big enough. The number was never the thing. It was never going to be the thing. It took them 8 years to figure that out, and some of them still haven't. But we have today. We have Harper eating cereal, and a maple tree turning orange in the backyard, and a quilt being made in squares in Phoenix, with her name on it. We have a Sunday morning phone call that started with an apology and didn't ask for anything. That's where we are. We'll see where it goes from here.